Today for episode 8 of How to Build the Abandoned Minigames lobby, we'll be building the redstone for the mob head puzzle. If you don't know, originally you'd explore both the new and classic lobby to collect all 5 mob heads. Then once you'd collected all 5, you'd bring them down to the gateway and place them in the gateway chest. Doing so would then turn on the redstone lamps beneath whichever mob head you had placed in the chest, indicating which mob heads had been successfully collected. Once all 5 redstone lamps had been turned on, the iron doors on both sides of the gateway would open, allowing you to obtain the coveted dragon mob head. However, for this tutorial I had a problem, and that was the redstone. See, the redstone which made this mob head puzzle work originally was built on the Legacy console edition of Minecraft back in 2017, and due to all the changes in how redstone works for both Bedrock and Java edition since then, the old redstone no longer worked correctly. So I was stuck with 2 options for this tutorial. Either option A, which was the easier option, which would be I would show you how to build the old Legacy redstone which was broken and would essentially be useless, or option B, which was of course a hard option. I redesigned all the redstone itself and made a brand new redstone system that would work for both Bedrock and Java edition, where players could actually use the mob head puzzle. So naturally I went with option B. So here's the design for the new mob head puzzle redstone. As you can see, it's pretty compact, so hopefully the materials needed won't be too challenging for anyone building this in survival. And speaking of materials, here they are. Now for this tutorial, since I'm doing redstone, or since I'm using redstone itself, I've got a pretty much perfect material list for you. As a note, you will need 5 stacks of 44 blocks, which can be any block of your choice, but for this tutorial I'm using cobblestone. You will need to name these blocks as they'll be used in the sorting system we'll be building later on in the tutorial, so be sure to name them. As you'll see in this tutorial, I named each stack of 44 from a number between 1 and 5. This was so it was easier to remember which stack was for which hopper, so I'd highly recommend you do the same. Additionally, you'll need around 2 to 3 stacks of any block of your choice. This is what we'll be placing the redstone on, so for this tutorial I'll be using lime green concrete to make it easier to follow along. So to get started, we'll first need to dig out enough space underneath the gateway to accommodate all the redstone we'll be building. To do this, we'll first stand in front of the hopper at the gateway. Then we'll dig down 12 blocks, and on the 12th place 1 glowstone block. This will be our center, or our middle area if you want to call it that. Now on the left and right sides we'll dig out 6 blocks, and on the 6 on each side we'll place another glowstone block in the floor. This should mean that once we're done we've got a 13 block wide space going across. Next we'll come back to the center area, or the original place where we placed our first glowstone block, and dig forward 8 blocks and once again place another glowstone block in the floor. Now as a note, the front side should be going towards the fountain while the back side is going towards the dragon head room. If it's easier for you to remember which side is which, place a specific block on the wall on each side. So for example, as you'll see on the front side, I've placed a piece of lime green concrete in the wall to help me remember that that is the front side of the actual redstone area. Next we'll come back to where the original glowstone block is, or again the middle or center area, and dig backwards 9 blocks, and on the 9th we're going to place another glowstone block in the floor. From here we can simply make a square, digging out all the blocks in between and adding a glowstone block in the floor of each corner. If you've done everything correctly thus far, it should be looking just like this. Now from here we're just going to be simply digging out the roof until we reach the floor of the abandoned lobby. To make things easier for you when doing this, I'd highly recommend going back to the center area, and then seeing where the hole is above you, and then working your way outwards from the middle. As a note, you will undoubtedly end up breaking the stone for the 2 ponds in the abandoned lobby, so if you do that, don't panic, just replace the stone and keep mining around it. If you've done everything correctly, it should be looking just like this. Now before we move on, for ease of access to this area and so that we don't have to keep digging holes in the roof or using scaffolding, I'd highly recommend going back up to the lobby itself and breaking this block on the right pond and letting the water flow down. Then in the redstone area, simply place a couple of blocks around the water so it can't flow anywhere else. Now you can place the spruce plank back in front of the hopper, then place the chest above the hopper, and you'll now have easy access to the redstone area. So getting started with the redstone for the mob head puzzle, you'll see I've replaced certain blocks in the floor with certain colours of concrete. This was so that I could better highlight where we're going to be placing in specific things such as hoppers, pistons, and even redstone dust. To begin, we're going to first place 1 piece of redstone dust above the centre glowstone block. Then we're going to place a redstone repeater going into it and a comparator. After that, we're going to place 6 hoppers going up with 1 hopper flowing into the tower. Now that we've done that, we'll simply go to the other side of the hopper tower and place a redstone comparator with a redstone repeater. If you followed everything I've said to do correctly, this is how it should look exactly. So make sure that you've got this, and if you don't, make sure you go back and correct it right now. Next, what we're going to be doing is essentially just repeating what we just did a few more times, in fact 4 times, twice on each side of our original hopper tower. If you built all 5 hopper towers correctly, you should now have something that looks just like this. From here, we're going to work on the redstone at the back side. First, we'll place 3 redstone dust coming from the redstone repeater, and then 1 piston. We'll repeat this 4 more times for a total of 5. Once you've done that, you can just place a sand block above each piston. Now, working on the redstone at the front side, we're just going to place our redstone in, above the lime green concrete. Naturally, explaining how to do this verbally is rather difficult, so instead I'll just be placing in each line of redstone slowly so you can follow along. As a reminder, if I do it, I'll go a little bit too fast for you while placing things in, you can always turn down the playback speed or even just pause the video if necessary. Now that you've added in all the redstone, we can then add 1 block of our choice above everything that isn't glowstone, and then we'll add 1 block of glass above each piece of glowstone, and that'll be as done for this layer. Moving on to the next section of the redstone, we'll first begin with placing in 1 more glass block above each and every glass block that we just placed. Then, using the lime green concrete as an example of where our redstone will be placed, we're going to come to the front side and add in our redstone dust line by line. Next, we'll come to the back side where the pistons are, and starting at the back left side, we're going to place 1 redstone torch above the glass block, then a repeater, then skip a block, then add another repeater, then skip a block, and repeat this pattern until we've placed in the last one here. Now we'll just be placing in the last of our redstone dust, which is easy to do but is hard to verbally explain, so just try to follow along. Once we finish placing the redstone dust, we can just go back and add in our block of our choice above everything that isn't glass or redstone. Now moving on to the next layer of redstone, I've once again added lime green concrete as an example of where we're going to be placing in our redstone. So starting at the backside where the pistons are, we're going to be building the redstone torch towers. These are really easy to build as you'll just be placing a redstone torch, then a block above it, and then of course another redstone torch above that block that you just placed, and then of course you just repeat that pattern until you're at the very top. So hopefully from just watching me place them, you'll be able to follow along. As a note for anyone interested, these towers will be what opens the 2 iron doors on the sides of the gateway. If you build both towers correctly, they should look just like this. As a note, the torch on top of both towers should be off, so if it isn't, you've made a mistake, go back and double check. Now moving on to the front 5 redstone towers, we'll just essentially be placing in the redstone leading to each tower and then building the towers themselves. As a note, for all 5 of these towers, you will need to break a block in the roof to add the final torch directly beneath the redstone lamps above it. These towers are all used to power the redstone lamps so that you know which head has been entered into the chest. If you built all 5 towers correctly, it should be looking just like this. So now that we've built these 7 redstone towers to power the redstone lamps and iron doors, let's get started on the sorting system we'll need to make everything work. To begin, we'll first come to the back of the redstone area where the pistons are. Then we'll break the repeater in the middle for a moment and then build up 4 blocks. Once we've done that, we can add 2 blocks on the left and right sides and then add 5 redstone repeaters going across towards the hoppers. Next, we'll place a block in front of each of these repeaters, then add a torch in front of that block. Then we'll add a block at the back of each repeater and then add redstone dust above those blocks. Now we can add one block above each repeater and then 2 more in front of those blocks. From here we'll just be simply adding in 2 redstone dust, then 1 comparator facing away from the hoppers, and repeat this 4 more times. If you've done everything correctly, it should look just like this. And before we continue with the hoppers and finishing the sorting system, we'll want to go back and break these 3 blocks beneath the sorting system and place that redstone repeater that we broke back down. So moving on to the final part of this tutorial, we've got to add in our remaining hoppers and items. To begin, we'll start with the middle hopper tower and add 2 hoppers going up and then 1 going into the hopper. Next, for the left and right hopper towers on the sides of the middle hopper tower, we'll place 1 hopper going towards the redstone torch towers and then 1 hopper going from the middle. After that, we'll then place 2 hoppers going up and then simply 2 going back. And then finally, for the 2 remaining hopper towers on the far left and right sides, we'll just be placing 2 hoppers going up, then 2 going from the middle and then 1 going back. If you've done everything correctly, it should look just like this. Now from here, it's a little bit hard to verbally explain where we're going to be placing in hoppers, but essentially we'll first place 1 barrel down. This will be used as our junk chest for items that aren't supposed to be sorted. Then we'll place 7 hoppers going across from the barrel, then 2 going towards the redstone torch towers, and finally 3 going back towards the barrel. If you've done everything correctly, you should notice that the 3rd and final hopper should be placed directly beneath the hopper in the ceiling. From here, to finish everything off, we've just got to come to the back of the sorting system area and then place 5 blocks of our choice, then 5 hoppers going into those blocks. Then starting from the left hopper, we're going to place 3 of our named blocks by themselves, then 41, and then the creeper head. After that, we'll do the exact same thing again, but this time we'll be placing the skeleton head. Then in the middle hopper, we're just going to be doing the same once again, but this time with the player head. Then it'll be the wither skeleton skull, and finally the zombie head, and that's everything done. Now to test out the redstone for this puzzle, we'll first want to come back to the bottom 5 hoppers and make sure nothing is inside them. If there is something inside, you'll be able to tell easily, as whichever hopper tower has an item in it will have a piston extended. However, once you made sure there are no items in the hoppers, you can just come back up to the top and enter the 5 remaining mob heads into the machine. This will now make the machine fully operational. So if you enter another mob head of your choice, the light beneath whichever mob head you entered will be turned on. And once all 5 mob heads have been entered, all 5 lights should be turned on, and then the 2 iron doors on both sides will open. Also, as a closing note before I end, for anyone who wants to reset the puzzle or essentially turn all the lights back off, all you've got to do is come back down to where the hoppers are and remove any mob heads that are inside them, and that'll reset the machine back to being able to be used again. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of this tutorial. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did go to enjoy it, please share with your friends, drop a like, and if you have any questions or issues, leave a comment and I'll respond as soon as possible. Also be sure to subscribe and turn the notification bell to stay notified for when I release the next episode of this series. And other than that guys, thank you all so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next episode.